Hi, my name is Andrea Judge. I'm a second grade teacher at Pinehurst Elementary. I've chosen this format as um, my way to record my audio responses to the discussion board posts. I've chosen several of my classmates' discussion board posts to reflect upon. They were Jesse Noah, Mirando, and Shannon Wood. Sorry if I butchered their names. And these are from the reflections that we posted for Module 2. And it asked several questions, and we responded with answers. I chose these classmates because their responses were either very similar to mine, and they were in agreement with many of the main ideas of those passages and those stories, or they had intriguing questions for me. Jess Noah stated that one of the biggest situations is kids being labeled and having labels. And he talks about, or she talks about, the foster kids not having a permanent place to live, and it's the image of a foster child carrying a garbage bag and their tiny amount of things from house to house, and they're given the label. Whereas our gifted students walk around with labels as well. Their labels are they're the smart kid, or just weird, or they don't have any friends or only a small group of friends, or they often play by themselves. They deal with their exceptionalities different than teachers sometimes give them credit for, according to her. Having a teacher come in and assist them in class brings unwanted attention. They're labeled the smart kid or the weirdo. But also having them pulled out of classroom has them labeled as the smart kid or the weirdo. They're going to the gifted program or the AIG program. And I guess I've never really seen it as a double-edged sword. There's no win-win. If they're in the classroom with a teacher facilitating them, a separate teacher facilitating them, then they have a tendency to be kind of segregated almost. And if they're going out of the classroom, then they're also segregated to another room. So it is a double-edged sword. Although this year we have started at Pinehurst Elementary, this year and last year, we've begun to have push-ins as opposed to pull-outs, and I have found it very helpful to those kids and also to those children who are not identified but are possibly AIG, or those children who are not AIG but are very smart. They're able to also benefit from having the AIG teacher come in and give us help and to teach lessons to them as well. Alicia Mirando says, as a teacher of gifted students, it is my responsibility to facilitate and accommodate my children's individual education plans. Gifted students need a nurturing environment to become successful learning. It is my responsibility as their teacher to provide many students with a positive learning environment. Effective teachers know their students well. Specifically, they are familiar with their students' personalities, interests, and needs. Effective teachers can reach out to their gifted students, and their students can also reach out to them. It is helpful for underachievers to know that they have a nurturing learning environment. This way they can be challenged to think critically and can be challenged to think above and beyond. I absolutely agree with that. We've all had the situation of underachievers in our classroom who, for boredom, they were so bored they didn't want to have to do that same thing again. And we shouldn't be asking them to do it again and again and again. Once they show that they are proficient in it, let's move them to the next level. Let's go to the next level of Bloom's taxonomy. Let's give them, some choice in the matter. Let's not stick them with the same old that they have to do every day, and they do get bored with it. They don't want to do it any longer. And then they become behavior issues. Shannon Wood spoke about the struggle to fit in with their peers. The text explains the reason many advanced learners struggle socially. Their own rapid learning rate coupled with complex thought processes also contribute to these students experience disequilibrium in many social contexts. She quoted that out of the book on page 115. I see so many of my gifted students that have problems fitting in with their peers, especially at our school where so many students do not see the value of their education. I know that I have, in my school, education, for the most part, for most parents, is very valued, and the parents are very active, very interested in what their children are learning, very interested in coming into the classroom and helping. And even the AIG students have problems fitting in, and problems making friends, and problems connecting with their peers. I can't imagine if they also had to face those children that didn't really care about education, and it wasn't important to them, and they had to, not only were they smart, but now they wanted to do well, and that wasn't the norm at their school. I just can't imagine how one would entice them to want to do better. But I'm so glad that there are teachers out there like Shannon Wood who are finding a way. According to her, a lot of AIG students, a lot of gifted students, are highly motivated. Unrealistic expectations that they set for themselves, it's very hard because they do set these unrealistic expectations. I spoke on my discussion board about children who missed one spelling word and broke down into tears because they only had a 97 on the test, and that was horrible, and were they ever going to get into college? I mean, that's how you felt, that they felt. And really, they were just afraid that I was disappointed in them and that their parents were disappointed in them. And last year I began a program in my classroom where we had a differentiated list of spelling words. We had the second grade spelling words, and then we had words that I chose that were third and fourth grade words. And I tried to explain to parents in the letter that I sent home with those differentiated lists that, we did a pre-test at the end of the week prior, and those kids that had mastered those skills, that they needed a bit of a challenge. And so it wasn't just my AIG students, but it was my high flyers that were doing it. I continued that again this year. Even though I didn't have any identified AIG, I had some very bright students and some very good spellers, and some of my best students weren't the best spellers, and some of my not best students were my best spellers. I had one little girl who, she couldn't read, but she had almost a photographic memory. She could spell any word, and she could sound it out, and she knew all the ways that words, that sounds could be made in words, and she was a fabulous speller. And it also helped her because she wasn't struggling every week to write 5 times the spelling word dog, which, is an understatement, but you understand my point. I would like to know from Shannon Wood and from others in our classroom, I would like to know, with those of you that have experiences at schools where education is not valued, because I am fortunate enough to work in a school where education is valued for the most part. I mean, I have had a couple of students over the years that have not, their parents have not felt that it was important for them to do well academically. But for those, I just can't, I would like to know how one is able to make those students care and make those students understand that education is important. With the students that I'm speaking of in my classroom specifically that didn't value education, I was able to form a relationship with them, so they at least valued my praise or my happiness in their doing the things that I asked them to do. So even though the parents weren't necessarily on board with it, I was able to get the student on board by developing that personal relationship. But what are some other ideas that teachers have? I'd be very interested in knowing on how to motivate those children to learn and to do their best, and to get them to do their work and do it to the best of their ability. I think that challenging our students is always a struggle, but especially those students who come from backgrounds where they don't necessarily feel that that struggle is worth it. I'd be very interested to hear those thoughts and ideas. Some of the other things that we talked about, that most of us talked about in our reflections, were children being separated, as I said earlier, either by pull-ins or pull-outs, and how that we have to be able to balance social and emotional characteristics. We have to be able to teach them how to handle social social interactions with others. You don't come into the world knowing how to make friends, and you don't come into the world knowing how to be a good friend. And, when you have children who face these problems or who have problems with these issues, then we have to find time in our day, even if it's at recess. I do recess once a week, which I'm grateful because I know lots of teachers have to do it all week long, but I do it at least once a week. And those times that I go out on the playground, I'm focused on one of my students and helping them better interact with others, whether it be an AIG student or a student, with special needs, or a student with some type of problem this week. Somebody that needs a little additional support, that needs a couple extra friends, who needs some game to play with, some fun to have with other people that can kind of take them away from themselves for a while. So I think that it's very important that we spend time with our children outside of, the classroom environment, that we spend time with them in the cafeteria, that we spend time with them eating lunch, that we spend time and get to know them a little bit better. You find out amazing things from children when you sit down and just talk to them, and we don't always have that time to do that in the classroom environment because we're so busy trying to get them to read at this level and add math facts to this level and do this and do that, and it's very hard. But we have to, in our spare time, which I know we don't have any, but we have to find time to get to know our children as people too, because they are just little people. So that is my take on the discussion board and the reflections from this past week. I was very interested in what everyone had to say and agreed that nurturing environments is the most important thing, and that they do have a lot of, the gifted students do have a lot of stresses that we don't always think about, and we think, oh, they're smart, they get it. Well, yes, they get it, but they have all this other junk that they have to deal with, unfortunately, with their peers and with their, ideas of perfectionism, both from themselves and from their parents. Lots of parents are, you will get 100% on that spelling test. And it's very hard for them to understand that it's not always the best thing to get 100%, that it doesn't show any growth, that it doesn't show that they're being motivated in any way. So have a great night. I hope you guys enjoyed my audio/video, and I can't wait to watch yours. Thanks. Bye.